Hello, thank you for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier from Thinking Stamping and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from New Zealand. Today I'll be sharing with you how to make this card, which I made with the Artfully Layered bundle. I made this card for the latest challenge for Fancy Stampin' Friday, which is a group of past and present members of Stampin' Up's artisan design team, and we hop. Well, not exactly hop, but every month we have an inspiration theme, and each day on our Instagram feed you get one more example of what someone's done with it. So the theme this month was a very easy one. It was our favourite thing from the 2022 January to June Mini Catalogue, and for me it is the Artfully Layered Cling stamp set and bundles with the Tropical Layers dies. So we'll get started, first of all, by talking about what we need to make this card. So, first up, we have got a Sahara Sand card base. Now, I've cut this at a slightly different height than I normally do, so it's still the width of an A4 piece of paper and scored at 10.5, but it is actually 14 centimetres and not my normal 14.8. Now, the reason for that is because I've used the stitch rectangle dies here for the card front, and that's not quite a standard size in New Zealand. So I've also got a mint macaron mat, which is cut at 13.5 by 10. And then I've got the basic white. Now I've cut that basic white using the largest of the stitched rectangle dies, that one there. Now I've also done an identical mint macaron base, or mint macaron mat, and basic white rectangle for the inside, which we'll do something with later. We'll just pop it aside for now. In addition to those things, you're also going to need a wee piece of mint macaron, because we're going to die cut, one of those skeleton leaves. You're also going to need a little bit of extra Sahara sand, because there's one of those that we need to die cut. And you're also going to need a little bit of so saffron, because we're going to cut ourselves one of those. And also we're going to use that little tiny leaf die to cut ourselves some little tiny ones. So just a little scrap about that big or even smaller to cut that out from. You're also going to need another piece of basic white for the sentiment. I've stamped that already for you. So I've used the happiest birthday wishes from the set. I've stamped it in Sahara Sand, and I have then die cut that out using another one of the stitched rectangle dies, this one here, which fits happiest birthday wishes just perfectly. And so we'll be using that a bit later on, so I'll just pop it over to the side. Right, so let's get started with some stamping. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this solid leaf stamp, and I'm going to ink it up in So Saffron, because that's the lighter of the colours that I want to use for it. So we'll just, it's looking a bit bubbly, but we'll see how that goes. And then I'm going to add in some mint macaron with a sponge dauber. So I'm just going to randomly dab in some bits of mint macaron. And then I'm going to hold my breath and hope this stamps nicely. So going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Couple more for luck. 11, 12. Ha! Yes, that's nice. And then we're going to repeat that exercise using the little heart-shaped leaves. So start with the So Saffron, just because it's the softest colour. And then we are going to add in some snips of mint macaron. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 for good luck. Yes, beautiful. Right, so that's given us most of our underlayer. The other thing that we need to add in is using the Sahara sand and that little script stamp. We are just going to ink that up, tapping, tapping, tap it. And we're going to have one there. And another one over there. And if we need to, we can always add a few more in later on. Right, so that's the underlayer. So we'll just glue that together. So glue nice near the edge, but not on the edge. Not too much because we don't want it to ooze. If we think we've got a bit much ooze, just pat it with a bit of sponge. And that's looking nice. And then we'll just connect that onto the card base. And I'm doing this now rather than later because the rest of the things that we've got to do involve adding die cuts, and it's easier that you can glue the back while the front side is still nice and flat. So we'll add that on, wiggle it if we have to. Okay, so we've got our base to work from. So next we are going to look at these die cuts that we've got. Now, if you look, you'll see that these die cuts are embellished with gold. Now what I've done to do that is I have used this, the Gilded Leafing embellishment. Now that is my one packet of it. To use it, I've put it into a plastic container so that it's easier to deal with, and all of that you see in there came out of this packet, and you can barely tell that I've taken anything out of it. That's how much it decompresses. Now it's quite well, not exactly time consuming, but it probably took me about 10 minutes or so to do the gilding of these leaves. So I'm just going to show you how I did it, but I've actually already done the ones that we're going to use. So this is what I did. I started off, I had my trusty silicone mat. I gave myself just a little bit of glue. I took the Sahara sand die cut because that is what I'm going to use for the outline. And then I just dabbed my finger in it and just dabbled. Just dabbled on some random spots. And then I just dropped it into my container of gilding, and you can see this is why it takes a bit of time, because it picks up way more than you need. And then you just have to flick it off. And you have to be a little bit careful because, you know, you are dealing with a reasonably fragile die cut. So you're just brushing it off, brushing it off, brushing it off up until a certain point. And then you bring in your super top secret #1 gilding tool, the toothbrush. And then you just, well, this is what I do. I just gently brush off using the toothbrush to get rid of the final parts of the gold leaf. And what you should end up with is just a nice little outline that is nicely gilded. Now, what I would do if I wasn't on the video and trying not to waste too much time is I'd probably go over that with the toothbrush again just to take off even more of the gilding powder. And what I did for these little tiny die cuts, because I've gilded those partially as well, obviously I didn't want to deal with those one at a time, so I just took my piece of So Saffron, I just dipped the glue in my finger in the glue, and I just kind of randomly lightly dabbed onto that and then gilded it, and then cut out the die after that had dried on. And what you get is these lovely little leaves that are partly So Saffron and partly gold. Okay. So what next? Right, next we're up to starting to put things together. So the next thing that I need, and here is my, my this shape, but already gilded. So I'm going to lay that on, just doing my little kind of spacing layout to see how it's going to go. I've got my Sahara Sand skeleton leaf outline, which again I've already gilded. So I can see that's sort of going to go there. And will my sentiment go on there? Yep, that looks about right. So back with the silicone mat. And I'm just going to, because these are quite delicate dies, I'm just going to sponge the glue onto the back of them. The only problem with doing it this way, or not exactly a problem, but the downside of doing it that way is you do lose quite a lot of your wiggle room. So you have to be reasonably confident about where you're going to put it. But then once it's there, it just pops on with no ooze at all. So it's a nice clean way of adding on the dies, the die cuts rather. Okay, so now we'll do the same thing with our Sahara Sand outline. Okay. And about there. Looks pretty good. Now, when we were going through the items that we needed, you'll remember I said we needed a mint macaron, one of those. And we do, because we're going to take not the skeleton part of the leaf, but the insides of the leaf. And, whoops, I gave away my silicone mat too soon because I need it again, because we're just going to add on. Oops. We're just going to add just some little bits of glue there. Just going to use my bit of sponge to spread it. And then we are going to inlay that into the Sahara Sand outline. Just like, oops. Just like that. And then we'll do the same with the other half. So a bit of glue. Oh, yep, I'll do it that way. Bit of glue, pat it on. And then we can just lift it in. And inlay it beautifully like that. Now, we've not quite seen the last of the silicone mat yet. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to add in is the sentiment. Now, I've got, as I've shown you already, I've got the die cut done. Oops. And you can see here that this has got lovely little fringy ends. Now, I've done that using this, the frayed ribbon, the white 3/4 inch frayed ribbon. Now it's a beautifully textured ribbon that you can use just as is, but the ends fray beautifully. And so I've cut a piece about 9.5 centimeters long, so I don't know what that is, about 3.5 inches. And I've already frayed one end of it already, but it just frays so easily. I just used my take your pick tool and just pulled out some of the threads, and just frayed so nicely. I felt like I was making a magic carpet. And then when I'd frayed out enough, I just trimmed off the excess. Now, have I done enough? It appears that way. So I just used a bit of tape runner or Stampin' Seal to have some stickiness on the back of my sentiment. And then attached it to the ribbon, and now I'm going to just have a little look at that and see if it looks even, because if it doesn't, or if it looks a bit long, then I can just get my scissors and trim the end. Okay, and then just going to dimensional that on. Now, you know me in dimensionals, I don't like things to sag, so I'd rather use too many than not enough. So we shall add in dimensionals. Okay. And now, where's the best place? Yep. That looks good, I think. Okay, and then the final thing on the front is I need to add in some of these little gilded leaves that we've done. Now I kind of like one to be on there. Perhaps one leading down to it. And some just in here amongst the stamped leaves. So the die does give you plenty of them to play with, so there's no shortage of them. I think the die might cut 8 of them. Okay. Now, the easiest way I've found to deal with them is, again, trusty silicone mat, a little bit of glue. Actually, and I'll just spread that glue out a bit because I don't want it to clump. Take your pick tool, pick it up, dab it in the glue, and then they become pretty easy. And you saw when I was just trying to pick them up with my finger, they're actually diabolical when you're trying to do them like that. Okay, I think that's enough. Now, I ummed and ahed about this, and I wasn't quite sure what to do on my final one. Was I going to add in any further embellishments or not? And in the end, I did add in some of the faux sea glass shapes. So really it's up to you whether you want to do that or whether you think that's just gilding the lily a step too far. But I think what I might do in this one, oops, come here, is just maybe pop in a couple of the white ones. Just, I don't know, just because I can, I suppose. There we go. Right, and so there we have it. The Happiest Birthdays Gilded, Artfully Layered Happy Birthday card. Now, on the inside, I'm just going to do perhaps just a little bit of stamping. And there we have it. The card from my favourite bundle from the 2022 January to June catalogue, the Artfully Layered bundle. Now, if you have any questions, you're welcome to contact me, and I can be reached through my blog or my Facebook page, the details of which are going to pop up on the end card of this video and are in the video description below. And if you live in New Zealand and you would like to shop with me, there are links to my online store in both of those places as well. And if you've enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything new that comes out. Thanks very much for joining me.